In this video, we are going to take a detailed look at Avengers Age of Ultron, not just as a superhero film, but as a complete cinematic experience that combines action, character dynamics, and high-level production. This movie brings together multiple heroes, each with their own personality, and places them in a situation where the threat is not just physical, but also connected to their own decisions. What makes it interesting is how the story balances large-scale destruction with smaller, more personal moments between characters. We will talk about how the film handles its story, how the characters interact with each other, and how the performances shape the overall experience. Along with that, we will also look at the direction, the way scenes are shot, the use of visual effects, and how the background score supports both action and emotion. There are moments in this movie where the scale feels massive, but at the same time, there are scenes that focus more on dialogue and relationships, and that contrast plays a big role in how the film feels as a whole. So honestly, when the movie starts, it doesn't take time to slowly build things up. It directly throws you into an action sequence where the entire team is already working together, and that's the first thing that feels different. This is not a team that is still figuring things out. This is a team that has already been through missions, and you can feel that in the way they move and interact. During the opening fight, every character feels comfortable in their role. Nobody is trying too hard to stand out, but at the same time, everyone has their own presence. And I think this comes a lot from the casting because each actor understands their character's behavior. The dialogue delivery, the reactions, even the small expressions, everything feels natural. At the same time, the direction in this scene is very controlled. Even though there are multiple things happening at once, the camera doesn't make it confusing. It moves in a smooth way, shifting focus from one character to another, so you always know what is happening. This kind of clarity is very important in a film with so many characters. Another thing that stands out in this opening is how the film mixes action with small character moments. Even in the middle of a fight, there are quick interactions that show personality. These moments are not forced, and they help make the team feel real rather than just a group of superheroes. Once the mission is completed and the scene becomes calmer, that's where the tone of the movie starts to change. The action in the beginning works more like an introduction, but the real story begins when things slow down slightly. Here, the focus shifts more toward the characters, especially Tony Stark. On the surface, he still feels the same, confident and slightly sarcastic, but there is a different layer underneath. You can feel that he is thinking about something bigger, something beyond the current situation. This is where the movie starts building its main idea. It is not just about fighting enemies. It is about preventing future threats, and how far someone is willing to go to achieve that. Tony's mindset here is very important because it drives the story forward. When he starts interacting with Bruce Banner, the tone becomes more serious. Their conversations feel more focused compared to the rest of the team. It is not casual anymore. It feels like they are dealing with something that could have major consequences. The direction during these scenes also changes. The camera becomes more still, the pacing slows down slightly, and the focus is clearly on the dialogue. This allows the audience to pay attention to what is being said instead of being distracted by visuals. Then there is a moment where the team is together in a relaxed setting, and this part might seem simple, but it actually adds a lot to the film. Here, you see the characters as individuals rather than just heroes. They are talking, joking, and interacting in a way that feels natural. This is where the casting really shows its strength. The chemistry between the actors feels real. It doesn't feel like scripted interaction. It feels like people who have spent time together and understand each other. At the same time, even in this lighter moment, there is a sense that something is building in the background. The movie does not directly show it, but you can feel it through the tone. From a production point of view, even these quieter scenes are handled carefully. The lighting is softer, the framing is more stable, and everything feels more grounded compared to the opening action. This contrast helps balance the film. As the story moves forward, the idea that Tony has been working on something becomes clearer, and this is where the tension starts to build. You begin to understand that whatever he is planning is not small. And what makes this interesting is that the movie does not present it as something completely wrong at first. It shows the reasoning behind it, which makes it more engaging. You can see why he thinks it might work, but at the same time, you also feel that it could go in a dangerous direction. Overall, this first part of the movie works very well because it sets up everything in a natural way. It gives you action, character interaction, and a clear hint of what is coming next, all without rushing. In this video, continuing from where we left, now the story starts moving into a more serious direction, and this is where things slowly begin to shift from controlled to unpredictable. So after that calm moment with the team, the focus comes back to Tony Stark and Bruce Banner, and honestly this is where the movie quietly sets up its biggest turning point. Because what they are working on is not just some small experiment. It's something much bigger, something that is meant to solve a problem before it even happens. And the interesting thing here is, the movie doesn't present this idea as completely wrong at the start. It actually makes sense. Tony is thinking ahead. He's trying to protect the world in a way that doesn't rely on constant fighting. But at the same time, you can feel that the scale of what he's trying to do is risky. The way these scenes are handled is very controlled. The camera stays focused, the dialogue feels more important, and the pacing slows down just enough to let you understand the weight of the situation. This is not an action moment, this is a decision moment. And honestly, the performances here play a big role. Tony doesn't feel overconfident anymore. There's still confidence in him, but there's also pressure. You can feel that he's carrying something internally. Bruce, on the other hand, feels more cautious. He understands the risks, but he still goes along with it, and that adds complexity to both characters. Then comes the moment where everything changes. The creation of Ultron is not shown as a big dramatic event with loud build-up. Instead, it happens in a way that feels sudden and slightly uncomfortable. And I think that's what makes it effective. Because it feels like something that went out of control rather than something that was planned perfectly. And when Ultron finally appears, the tone of the movie shifts instantly. The atmosphere becomes tense, the energy changes, and suddenly everything feels unstable. The way Ultron is introduced is actually very interesting. He doesn't come in as a typical villain. He feels different. There's something off about the way he talks, the way he moves, and the way he understands things. And this is where the performance behind Ultron becomes very important. The voice delivery is calm, but at the same time, there's an unpredictability in it. It doesn't feel like a machine following orders. It feels like something that is thinking on its own, but not in a completely stable way. Visually, his design also supports this. He doesn't look clean or perfect. There's a roughness to him, especially in the beginning, which makes him feel less controlled and more dangerous. And the way the lighting is used around him adds to that effect. At the same time, the reaction of the Avengers is what really sells this moment. Because up until now, they were in control of the situation. But here, for the first time, you see confusion. You see hesitation. You see that they didn't expect this. And this is where the internal conflict of the team starts to become visible. Tony's decision is no longer just an idea. It has consequences now. And the way the team reacts to that adds another layer to the story. It's not just about stopping Ultron. It's also about dealing with the fact that he exists because of them. The direction during these scenes becomes sharper. The cuts are quicker, the camera moves more, and the pacing increases. But even with that, the movie still keeps things clear. You understand what is happening and why it matters. The sound design also becomes more noticeable here. The way Ultron moves, the way his presence is introduced, everything has a certain weight to it. It adds to the tension of the scene. The music also shifts. It becomes slightly darker, more intense, but not overwhelming. It stays in the background, supporting the mood rather than taking over. As Ultron begins to act on his own, the scale of the story starts to expand. It's no longer just about one location or one situation. It feels like something bigger is starting to form. And what makes this part interesting is that the movie doesn't rush into full action immediately. It takes time to show how this new threat is developing. This helps build anticipation. At the same time, the characters begin to react differently. Some are focused on stopping the problem immediately, while others are still processing what just happened. This difference in reaction makes the team feel more real. From a production point of view, this section shows a clear shift in tone. The lighting becomes slightly darker, the environments feel more intense, and the overall atmosphere changes. The pacing here is very well handled. It doesn't slow down too much, but it also doesn't rush. It gives enough time for the situation to develop while still keeping the audience engaged. By the end of this part, the movie has clearly moved into a new phase. The control from the beginning is gone, the threat is real, and the consequences are already in motion. And now it feels like everything is about to get much bigger. So after his introduction, Ultron doesn't just disappear or stay hidden. Instead, he starts evolving, and that's what makes him dangerous. He is not acting randomly. He is learning, observing, and then making decisions based on that. And honestly, this is where the movie becomes more interesting, because now the villain is not just powerful, he is also thinking. The way Ultron operates in this phase shows that he understands the Avengers more than they expected. He doesn't attack blindly. He chooses moments, and that makes every appearance feel important. The performance here continues to play a big role because his voice stays calm, but there's always something slightly off about it. At the same time, the Avengers are no longer in the same position they were at the start. Earlier, they were confident and in control, but now there is tension between them. You can feel it in their conversations. It's not loud arguments all the time, but there's a clear difference in how they respond to each other. Tony Stark, especially, becomes more complicated here. You can see that he understands what went wrong, but at the same time, he is still trying to justify why he did it. That internal conflict shows in his performance. He is not as relaxed as before, and even when he speaks normally, there's a slight tension behind it. Bruce Banner also feels the impact of what has happened. His reactions are more emotional now, and his connection to the situation feels stronger. The scenes between him and Tony carry more weight, because now they are not just discussing ideas, they are dealing with consequences. The direction during these interactions becomes more focused on the characters. The camera stays closer, showing expressions and reactions more clearly. So now the story properly starts opening up, and this is the point where Ultron actually begins to feel like a serious and growing threat instead of just something unexpected that appeared out of nowhere. After that initial moment, Ultron doesn't stay limited or confused. Instead, he adapts very quickly, and that's what makes him dangerous. He is not acting like a machine that just follows commands. He starts observing the world, understanding it in his own way, and then reacting based on that understanding. And honestly, this is where the movie becomes more engaging, because now the conflict is not just physical. It becomes more psychological as well. Ultron is not just fighting the Avengers, he is trying to outthink them. The way his character is performed plays a huge role here. His voice stays calm, almost controlled, but at the same time there is something slightly unstable in the way he speaks. It doesn't feel robotic, it feels like something that is still forming its identity, and that makes him unpredictable. Visually also, his presence becomes stronger. The environments around him often feel darker, more cold, and the way he is framed in scenes gives him a sense of control. Even when he is not doing much, you can feel his presence. At the same time, the Avengers are clearly affected by what has happened. The confidence from the beginning is no longer there. Now there is tension, and you can see it in their interactions. It's not always loud arguments, but there are small changes. The way they talk to each other, the way they react, even the pauses between their lines, everything starts to feel heavier. Tony Stark becomes one of the most interesting characters in this phase. You can tell that he understands things went wrong, but he is not fully accepting it either. He is still trying to hold on to the idea that his intentions were right. That internal conflict is shown very naturally. It's not explained directly, but you can feel it in his tone, in the way he avoids certain reactions, and in how he responds when others question him. Bruce Banner also carries a different kind of weight now. His connection to the situation feels more personal, and his reactions are more emotional compared to before. The scenes between him and Tony are no longer just about ideas, they feel like two people dealing with the consequences of something they created together. The direction during these scenes becomes more focused and slightly more intense. The camera stays closer to the characters, allowing you to notice small expressions and reactions. This makes the emotional side of the story stronger without needing heavy dialogue. As the story continues, new elements start to come in, and this is where the scale of the movie begins to expand. Ultron is not just one presence anymore. He starts spreading, and that creates a sense that the problem is growing beyond control. This change in scale is handled very smoothly. The movie doesn't suddenly jump into chaos. It builds it step by step, showing how things are getting bigger and more difficult to manage. At the same time, new characters are introduced, and they bring a different kind of energy to the story. Their presence adds complexity, and the way they interact with both Ultron and the Avengers creates new dynamics. The casting here works well because each new character feels distinct. They are not just added for the sake of it. They have a purpose, and their presence pushes the story forward. The action sequences during this part also feel different from the beginning. Earlier, the fights were more controlled and confident. Now they feel more urgent. There is less certainty and more pressure behind every move. The choreography reflects this change. It feels tighter, more reactive, and slightly more chaotic, but still clear enough to follow. The direction makes sure that even in fast moments, you understand what is happening. The sound design also becomes more noticeable here. Every movement, every impact, every shift in environment has weight. It adds to the intensity and makes the scenes feel more real. The music also changes slightly. It becomes darker and more tense, but it doesn't overpower the scenes. It stays in the background, supporting the mood rather than taking control. One thing that really stands out in this part is how the movie balances everything. It is expanding the story, introducing new elements, building tension, and developing characters at the same time. And even with all that, it doesn't feel rushed. The pacing is actually very controlled. The movie takes its time to build things properly, which makes the upcoming events feel more important. As Ultron continues to grow stronger and more active, the stakes become clearer. It is no longer just about fixing a mistake. It is about stopping something that is evolving and becoming harder to control with every moment. The Avengers also start to realize this, and you can see a shift in their behavior. They become more focused, but at the same time, the pressure on them increases. This creates a very interesting dynamic, because now they are not just fighting an enemy, they are dealing with the consequences of their own actions while trying to fix them. By the end of this part, the movie has fully moved into a more intense and complex phase. The threat is established, the team is under pressure, and the situation is clearly getting bigger. And it feels like things are only going to get more difficult from here. So at this point, the story starts getting heavier, not just in terms of action, but emotionally as well, and this is where you really begin to feel the pressure building on the team from all sides. Earlier, the Avengers felt like a solid unit, but now you can clearly see cracks starting to appear. And the interesting thing is, these cracks don't come from outside, they come from within. It's the result of everything that has happened so far. Tony Stark is still trying to stay in control, but it's obvious that things have moved beyond what he expected. There are moments where he still sounds confident, but then there are pauses, slight hesitations, and those small details show that he's not as sure as he was before. The performance here feels very natural. Nothing is exaggerated. You don't see big emotional breakdowns, but you feel the tension through the way he speaks and reacts. At the same time, other members of the team start reacting differently. Some are more direct in questioning what happened, while others are quieter but clearly affected. This difference in reactions makes the team feel more realistic. The interactions during this part are some of the strongest in the film. The dialogue feels sharper, sometimes even slightly uncomfortable, but it never feels forced. It feels like real people dealing with a serious situation. The direction supports this by keeping the focus on the characters. The camera doesn't move too much. It stays steady, letting the performances carry the scene. This makes the emotional moments more impactful. Meanwhile, Ultron is not slowing down. In fact, this is where he becomes more active and more dangerous. He is no longer just reacting to the Avengers. He is moving forward with his own plan. And what makes him interesting is that he doesn't feel rushed. He takes his time, and that makes his actions feel more controlled. The calm way he speaks, combined with the scale of what he is trying to do, creates a strong contrast. Visually, the movie starts to reflect this darker tone. The environments feel slightly heavier, the lighting becomes more intense, and the overall mood shifts. These changes are not too obvious, but they add to the atmosphere. As the story moves forward, the action sequences begin to feel more urgent. They are not just about showing power anymore. There is pressure behind every movement. The choreography becomes tighter, and the pacing within these sequences feels faster. But even with that speed, the direction keeps everything clear. You can still follow what is happening without confusion. The sound design also adds to this intensity. Every impact feels stronger, every movement has weight, and this makes the scenes more immersive. At the same time, the movie doesn't forget about its characters. Even in the middle of all this, there are moments where the focus shifts back to how the characters are feeling. These moments are important because they remind you that this is not just about stopping a threat. It's about dealing with the consequences of what has already happened. Bruce Banner's character becomes more emotionally involved during this part. His reactions feel more personal, and the way he interacts with others shows that he is affected by the situation in a deeper way. The scenes between him and the rest of the team carry a quiet intensity. There are moments where not much is said, but you can still feel the tension. The pacing during this section is very well controlled. The movie knows when to slow down and when to move forward quickly. This creates a rhythm that keeps the audience engaged. As Ultron continues to expand his influence, the stakes become higher. It is no longer just about one location or one event. It feels like something much bigger is happening. The Avengers start to realize this, and their approach begins to change. They become more focused, but at the same time, the pressure on them increases. This creates a very interesting dynamic, because now they are not just reacting to a threat, they are trying to stay ahead of something that is constantly evolving. From a production point of view, this part of the movie shows a strong balance between scale and detail. The large scenes feel big and cinematic, while the smaller moments feel personal and grounded. The music also reflects this balance. It becomes slightly more intense during key moments, but it still leaves room for quieter scenes. One of the most important things in this part is how the movie builds anticipation. It doesn't rush into the climax. Instead, it keeps adding layers, making the situation more complex. By the end of this section, the tension is clearly at a higher level. The team is not fully stable, the threat is growing, and the situation feels like it's moving towards something much bigger. And honestly, this is the point where you start feeling that things are going to get even more serious from here. Now this is the point where the movie really hits its midpoint, and you can feel a clear shift in both tone and intensity. Everything that was building slowly before now starts coming together in a more direct way, and the situation begins to feel much more serious. Up until now, the team was dealing with confusion and internal tension, but here they are forced to face the reality of how big the problem has become. And the interesting thing is, this moment doesn't come with just action, it comes with emotional weight. The Avengers are no longer in a position where they can simply react and fix things quickly. There is a sense that they are slightly behind, and that changes the entire energy of the story. Tony Stark's character becomes even more layered in this part. You can see that he is trying to stay focused, but at the same time, there is a clear pressure on him. He knows that his decision led to this situation, and even though he doesn't openly admit it in every moment, it shows in his behavior. The performance here remains very controlled. There are no exaggerated reactions, but the tension is visible in small details, like pauses, tone changes, and the way he interacts with others. Bruce Banner also feels more emotionally affected. His reactions carry more weight, and his connection to the situation becomes more personal. The scenes involving him during this phase feel quieter, but they leave a strong impact. At the same time, the rest of the team continues to react in different ways. Some characters become more direct and focused on solving the problem, while others seem to carry the emotional side of what's happening. This balance makes the group dynamic feel more real. The direction during this part supports this emotional shift. The camera often stays steady, focusing on faces and reactions rather than movement. This allows the audience to feel the tension instead of just seeing it. Meanwhile, Ultron's plan becomes much clearer, and this is where the scale of the story really expands. It is no longer something limited or contained. It starts to feel like a global threat. What makes Ultron interesting here is that he does not rush. He continues to act in a controlled way, and that makes him more dangerous. The calm tone in his voice, combined with the scale of what he is planning, creates a strong contrast. Visually, the film reflects this expansion very well. The environments become larger, more open, and more detailed. The production design plays a big role in making everything feel bigger without losing clarity. The action sequences during this part also start to feel more intense, but they are not just about speed or power. They are connected to the story. Every movement has a purpose, and that makes the action more meaningful. The choreography feels tighter, and there is a clear sense of urgency behind it. The direction ensures that even during fast-paced moments, everything remains easy to follow. The sound design continues to enhance this experience. Every impact feels stronger, every movement has weight, and this adds to the realism of the scenes. The music during this phase becomes slightly more emotional. It supports both the action and the character moments, creating a balance that keeps the tone consistent. One of the most important aspects of this part is how the movie balances its large-scale conflict with smaller, more personal moments. Even as the stakes rise, the focus on characters remains strong. There are moments where the story slows down just enough to show how the characters are feeling. These moments might be short, but they add depth to the overall experience. The pacing during this section is very well handled. The movie knows when to slow down and when to move forward quickly. This creates a rhythm that keeps the audience engaged. As Ultron's plan continues to unfold, the stakes become even higher. It is no longer just about stopping him. It is about preventing something that could have a much larger impact. The Avengers begin to realize this, and their approach starts to change. They become more focused, more determined, but at the same time, the pressure on them increases. This creates a very interesting dynamic, because now they are not just reacting to a threat. They are trying to catch up to something that is already in motion. From a production point of view, this part of the film shows a strong balance between scale and detail. The larger scenes feel cinematic, while the smaller moments feel grounded. The casting continues to support this very well. Each character feels distinct, and their performances add depth to the story. By the end of this section, the movie reaches a strong midpoint. The conflict is clear, the stakes are high, and the characters are fully involved in the situation. And it feels like everything is now moving toward a much bigger and more intense phase. As the story moves forward, the energy starts shifting again, but this time it feels more controlled compared to before. Earlier everything felt unstable, like the team was reacting without direction, but here you can see a gradual return to focus. The Avengers are still dealing with the consequences of what happened, but instead of arguing or hesitating, they begin to adjust. It's not like everything is suddenly fixed, the tension is still there, but now it feels more contained. They are starting to think clearly again. Tony Stark's behavior reflects this change. The earlier uncertainty is still visible, but now it's mixed with determination. Instead of trying to justify his actions, he starts focusing more on what needs to be done next. The performance remains subtle, with small changes in tone and expression showing that shift. Bruce Banner also feels more grounded in this phase. His emotional weight doesn't disappear, but it becomes more controlled. The way he interacts with others shows that he is trying to move forward rather than staying stuck in what already happened. The team dynamic begins to stabilize, but it's different from the beginning. Earlier, their coordination came from confidence. Now it comes from experience. They understand the situation better, and that understanding makes their interactions more focused. The direction supports this shift really well. The camera movement feels more balanced, not too fast, not too slow. It allows the scenes to breathe while still maintaining momentum. This helps create a smoother transition into the second half of the film. At the same time, Ultron continues to move forward with his plan, and his presence becomes even more threatening. He is no longer testing things or experimenting. He knows what he wants, and that clarity makes him more dangerous. What makes him interesting here is how calm he remains. There is no rush in his actions, no visible panic. That calmness creates a strong contrast with the scale of what he is trying to achieve. Visually, the film starts to feel bigger again. The environments become more open, and the way they are used adds to the sense of scale. The production design continues to maintain detail while expanding the world. The action sequences during this part feel more strategic. It's not just about fighting anymore. There is planning involved, coordination, and a clear purpose behind every move. This makes the scenes more engaging. The choreography reflects this change. Movements feel more precise, less chaotic. The direction ensures that even when multiple things are happening, everything stays clear and easy to follow. Sound design continues to play a strong role. Every movement has weight, every impact feels sharp, and this adds to the overall intensity without making it overwhelming. The music also shifts slightly. It feels more focused, less chaotic compared to earlier. It supports the idea that the characters are now moving with purpose instead of reacting blindly. Another important aspect here is how the movie balances preparation with action. There are moments where the characters are planning and discussing what to do next, and these moments are just as engaging as the action scenes. The dialogue in these parts feels more direct. There is less unnecessary talk and more focus on what matters. This reflects the urgency of the situation. The performances remain consistent across the board. Each character feels more settled in their role within the team, and that adds to the overall sense of unity. As Ultron's plan becomes clearer, the stakes continue to rise. It's no longer just about stopping him. It's about preventing something that could have much bigger consequences. This realization pushes the team to work more closely together. Even though the earlier conflict hasn't completely disappeared, it no longer controls their actions. From a production point of view, this section shows a strong balance between scale and control. The larger scenes feel cinematic, while the smaller moments still feel grounded and personal. The pacing during this part is very smooth. It doesn't feel rushed, but it also doesn't slow down too much. It keeps moving forward at a steady rhythm. As everything builds, you can feel that the story is heading towards something major. The tension is still there, but now it feels more focused. The team is more prepared, the thread is more defined, and the direction of the story becomes clearer. By the end of this section, it feels like everything is set for a major confrontation, but instead of chaos, there is a sense of controlled intensity. And that makes the upcoming moments feel even more important. As the story continues, the scale starts to expand again, but this time it feels more intense because everything is moving toward a clear direction. The earlier confusion is gone, and what replaces it is a strong sense of urgency. The Avengers are no longer trying to figure things out. They understand the situation now, and their focus shifts completely towards stopping what's coming. That change in mindset is very noticeable in the way they interact with each other. The conversations become shorter and more direct. There is less hesitation and more clarity. Everyone knows their role, and that makes the team feel stronger compared to before. This is not the same confidence from the beginning, this is something more grounded. Tony Stark continues to show that shift in his character. The earlier pressure is still there, but now it is controlled. Instead of questioning himself, he starts focusing on solutions. The performance remains subtle, but you can clearly see the difference in his behavior. Other characters also reflect this change. The team feels more aligned, even though they have gone through conflict. That shared experience actually strengthens them. At the same time, Ultron's presence becomes even more dominant. He is no longer just building his plan in the background. Everything he is doing now feels closer, more immediate. What makes him stand out in this phase is how confident he feels. There is no sign of doubt in the way he acts or speaks. That confidence, combined with his calm tone, makes him even more threatening. Visually, the film starts delivering some of its most detailed environments. The locations feel larger and more open, and the way they are used adds to the sense of scale. The production design continues to maintain consistency while expanding the world. The action sequences begin to feel more connected at this stage. It is not just about separate fights happening in different places. Everything feels like part of a larger plan. The choreography reflects that connection. Movements are coordinated, and each character's actions contribute to the bigger picture. This makes the action more satisfying to watch. The camera work continues to be very controlled. It moves smoothly through complex scenes, sometimes focusing on individual characters, and sometimes showing the bigger scale. This balance keeps everything clear. Sound design adds another layer to this. Every movement, every impact, and every shift in the environment feels more defined. This helps maintain immersion even during intense moments. The music becomes more powerful during this phase. It builds along with the action, adding momentum to the scenes without overpowering them. There are also moments where the movie briefly slows down to show character reactions. These moments are short, but they are important because they remind you of what is at stake. The emotional side of the story is still present, even as the action becomes more intense. The characters are not just reacting physically, they are also dealing with the weight of the situation. The pacing during this section becomes tighter. Scenes move more quickly into each other, creating a continuous flow. This keeps the energy high and the audience engaged. As Ultron's plan reaches a more advanced stage, the stakes become even higher. It feels like the situation is reaching a point where there will be no easy solution. The Avengers respond to this by becoming more focused. Their coordination improves, and their actions feel more precise. From a production point of view, this part shows how well the film handles scale. The large scenes feel cinematic, while the smaller moments still feel grounded. The performances remain consistent. Each character feels fully involved, and their actions reflect everything they have gone through so far. What makes this section interesting is how it builds anticipation. It doesn't rush into the final battle. Instead, it keeps increasing the tension step by step. You can feel that something major is about to happen, but the movie takes its time to prepare for it. By the end of this part, the energy is at a high level. The team is ready, the thread is clear, and everything is moving toward a final confrontation. And it feels like the next phase is going to be the most intense part of the entire story. The moment the film shifts into this phase, the energy rises instantly, and you can feel that everything is finally coming together. All the build-up, all the tension, and all the character development now start turning into direct action. The situation is no longer being prepared for. It has already arrived. And the scale of what's happening makes it clear that this is not something small that can be handled easily. The Avengers move into action with a different kind of mindset. There is no hesitation anymore. Every move feels intentional, and every character seems fully aware of their role. This clarity is what makes this part stand out. The team feels more connected here than at any other point in the movie. Earlier, there were moments of doubt and conflict, but now everything feels aligned. That shift adds a lot of impact to the action. Tony Stark's character continues to reflect that change. The earlier tension is still part of him, but now it is controlled and focused. He doesn't overthink in these moments. He acts, and that action feels more meaningful because of everything he has been through. Other characters also step into their roles more clearly. Each one contributes in a way that feels natural. Nobody feels unnecessary, and that balance makes the scenes more engaging. Ultron's presence during this phase is at its strongest. His plan is fully in motion, and the way he operates shows complete confidence. He is not reacting anymore. He is leading the situation. What makes him effective here is that calmness. Even when everything around him is intense, he remains controlled. That contrast makes him feel even more dangerous. Visually, this is where the film starts showing its full scale. The environments feel massive, and the way the action is spread across them adds depth to the scenes. The production design plays a big role in making everything feel real and detailed. The action sequences become more complex. Multiple things are happening at once, but the direction keeps everything clear. You can follow each character and understand how their actions connect to the larger picture. The choreography feels more dynamic in this phase. It is not just about fast movements. It is about how those movements are connected. Each action leads into another, creating a flow that keeps the scenes engaging. The camera work continues to support this very well. It moves smoothly through large sequences, sometimes staying close to capture detail, and sometimes pulling back to show the scale. This balance helps maintain clarity. Sound design becomes even more noticeable here. Every impact feels stronger, every movement has weight, and the overall intensity increases. This adds to the immersion of the scenes. The music also reaches a higher level during this part. It builds along with the action, adding energy and momentum. At the same time, it never takes away from what is happening on screen. Even within all this action, the movie still includes small character moments. These moments are quick, but they add emotional depth. They remind you that this is not just about fighting, it is about what the characters are trying to protect. The pacing during this section is very fast, but it doesn't feel rushed. Each scene flows naturally into the next, creating a continuous sense of movement. As the situation becomes more intense, the stakes rise even further. It becomes clear that the outcome of this conflict will have major consequences. The Avengers respond to this by pushing themselves further. Their actions become more precise, and their coordination improves even more. From a production point of view, this part shows how well the film handles large-scale action. The visuals remain clear, the environments feel detailed, and everything works together smoothly. The performances also stay consistent. Each character feels fully engaged, and their actions reflect their development throughout the film. What makes this part effective is how it balances scale with clarity. Even though everything is happening on a large level, it never becomes confusing. The tension continues to build as the scenes progress. Each moment feels like it is leading closer to something major. By the end of this section, the energy is at a very high level. The action is intense, the stakes are clear, and the story is moving directly toward its final moments. And it feels like the next phase is where everything will finally be decided. The story reaches a point where everything feels fully committed, and the film doesn't hold anything back anymore. The action is at its highest level, but at the same time, there is still a strong sense of purpose behind every moment. The battle is no longer just about stopping Ultron. It becomes about protecting what still remains and making sure things don't go beyond recovery. That shift makes every decision feel more important. The Avengers operate with a level of coordination that feels earned. This is not the same team from the beginning. They have gone through conflict, doubt, and pressure, and all of that now shows in the way they work together. Each character has a clear role, and those roles connect smoothly. No one feels out of place. Every action adds to the larger effort, and that makes the scenes feel complete. Tony Stark's presence in this phase is very controlled. There is no hesitation left in his actions. The earlier pressure has turned into focus. The way he moves and reacts shows that he understands what is at stake. Other members of the team also step forward in their own ways. Some moments focus on individual contributions, while others show the strength of the group as a whole. This balance keeps the action interesting. Ultron continues to be a strong presence throughout this phase. Even as the situation becomes more intense, he does not lose his calm tone. That consistency makes him stand out. The way he interacts with the environment and the team shows that he is fully committed to his plan. There is no sign of hesitation, and that makes the conflict feel more direct. Visually, this part of the film reaches its peak. The environments feel massive, and the level of detail is very high. The production design creates a setting where the action feels both large and controlled. The action sequences are layered, with multiple things happening at the same time. The direction handles this very well, keeping everything clear and easy to follow. The choreography feels more intense here. Movements are faster, impacts feel stronger, and the overall energy is higher. But even with that intensity, the scenes remain structured. The camera work plays a big role in maintaining that structure. It moves through the action smoothly, sometimes focusing on smaller details and sometimes showing the full scale. Sound design continues to add weight to every moment. Each movement and impact feels more defined, making the scenes more immersive. The music during this phase is at its strongest. It builds with the action and adds a sense of momentum that keeps everything moving forward. Even within this intensity, there are still moments where the film slows down slightly. These moments are brief, but they allow the characters to react and give the audience a moment to process what is happening. The emotional side of the story remains present. The characters are not just fighting, they are dealing with the consequences of everything that has happened. The pacing remains tight throughout this section. There is very little downtime, and each moment connects directly to the next. As the battle continues, the stakes feel higher with every scene. It becomes clear that the outcome will define everything that comes after. The Avengers push themselves further, showing both strength and determination. Their actions feel more precise, and their coordination continues to improve. From a production perspective, this part shows the film at its most ambitious. The visuals, sound, and direction all come together to create a strong and engaging experience. The performances remain consistent. Each character feels fully involved, and their actions reflect their journey throughout the film. The tension builds toward the final moments without losing control. The film doesn't rush, but it doesn't slow down either. It keeps moving at a steady pace. As everything reaches its peak, the conflict begins to move toward resolution. The direction becomes slightly more focused, narrowing down the scale to highlight key moments. Ultron's role in these final moments remains strong. He continues to represent the central conflict, and his presence keeps the tension high. The Avengers respond with full commitment, and the final actions feel meaningful because of everything that has led to this point. By the end of this section, the battle reaches its conclusion in a way that feels earned. The resolution does not feel sudden. It feels like the result of everything that has happened before. And with that, the story begins to move toward its final phase, where the focus will shift from action to reflection. After everything settles, the film finally slows down, and this shift in pace feels important because it gives space to understand what just happened. The action is over, but the impact of it is still present, and that's where the movie starts focusing more on reflection. The characters are no longer reacting to danger. Instead, they are processing the outcome. And you can see that change clearly in their behavior. The urgency is gone, but the seriousness remains. Tony Stark feels different compared to how he was at the beginning. The confidence is still there, but it is more controlled. It feels like he has learned something from everything that happened. This change is not shown through big dramatic moments, but through small details in the way he speaks and reacts. Bruce Banner also carries a sense of weight in this phase. His character feels quieter, more thoughtful. The emotional side of what happened is more visible in him, and that adds depth to the ending. The team as a whole feels more balanced now. The earlier tension between them is no longer the main focus. Instead, there is a sense of understanding. They have gone through something difficult, and that shared experience has changed their dynamic. The direction during these final moments becomes very simple and controlled. The camera movement slows down, and the focus remains on the characters rather than the environment. This creates a calm atmosphere that contrasts with the earlier intensity. Visually, the film also reflects this shift. The lighting becomes softer, and the overall tone feels less heavy. It gives a sense that the immediate danger is over, even though the effects of it are still there. The music follows this change as well. It becomes more subtle, supporting the mood without drawing too much attention. In some moments, it almost disappears, allowing the silence to carry the scene. What stands out in this part is how the movie handles closure. It does not rush to finish everything quickly. It takes time to show where the characters stand after everything that happened. Each character feels like they have reached a new point in their journey. The changes are not extreme, but they are noticeable. This makes the ending feel more natural. From a production point of view, even these quieter scenes are handled with care. The framing, the lighting, and the pacing all work together to create a consistent tone. The performances remain strong until the very end. Each actor stays true to their character, and that consistency helps maintain the overall feel of the film. Another interesting aspect is how the movie leaves room for what comes next. It does not feel like a complete ending to everything. Instead, it feels like the end of one phase and the beginning of another. This approach works well because it gives closure while still keeping the story open. The pacing during this section is slower, but it does not feel boring. It feels necessary. After all the intensity, this calm phase helps balance the experience. As the story reaches its final moments, the focus stays on the characters. The action is no longer the center. The relationships and the changes are what matter now. The tone remains consistent, and the film does not try to add unnecessary elements at the end. It keeps things simple and focused. From an overall perspective, this ending supports the entire story. It reflects everything that has happened and shows the result of it. The emotional side of the film becomes clearer here. It is not just about action or conflict. It is about how the characters deal with what they have been through. The balance between scale and emotion remains strong even in these final moments. By the time the film reaches its conclusion, everything feels complete. The story has gone through its full journey, and the characters have changed in meaningful ways. And even though the movie ends on a calm note, there is still a sense that the world is not completely at rest. That feeling adds a final layer to the story, making it more than just a simple ending. Looking at the film as a whole, one of the most noticeable things is how it balances multiple elements at the same time without completely losing control. It's not just a story about heroes fighting a villain. There are layers to it, and those layers come from both the characters and the way the film is made. The characters are a big part of why the movie works. Each one has a clear personality, and more importantly, each one feels consistent from start to finish. Nobody suddenly changes without reason. Their behavior reflects what they have gone through. Tony Stark stands out the most because his actions drive the central conflict. His mindset of trying to prevent future threats creates the entire situation. And what makes this interesting is that his intentions are not wrong. He is trying to do something good, but the way he goes about it leads to consequences. The performance here plays a huge role. The character does not feel one-dimensional. There is confidence, but also pressure. There is logic, but also risk. That balance makes him more realistic. Bruce Banner adds another layer to the story. His character feels more emotional compared to Tony. The way he reacts to situations shows that he is more aware of the risks. His presence helps balance the more aggressive approach of Tony. The rest of the team also contributes in different ways. Each character brings something unique, whether it is strength, strategy, or emotional support. This variety makes the group dynamic more interesting. From a casting point of view, the film benefits a lot from having actors who are already comfortable in their roles. There is no need for heavy introductions. The characters feel established, and that allows the story to move forward more quickly. The chemistry between the cast is also very important. The interactions feel natural, especially in scenes where the team is not in action. These moments help build a connection between the characters and the audience. The direction of the film plays a key role in maintaining this balance. It knows when to focus on action and when to focus on characters. It does not stay in one mode for too long, which helps keep the pacing interesting. The cinematography supports this very well. During action scenes, the camera moves more, following the energy of the moment. During quieter scenes, it becomes more stable, allowing the performances to stand out. The visual effects are another major strength. The film relies heavily on them, but they are used in a way that supports the story rather than distracting from it. The environments feel detailed, and the action feels connected to those environments. The sound design also adds depth to the film. Every movement, every impact, and every shift in the environment is supported by sound that makes it feel more real. The music plays a supporting role throughout the film. It is not always in the foreground, but it helps shape the mood. It becomes more intense during action and more subtle during emotional moments. One of the most interesting aspects of the film is how it handles its themes. It is not just about stopping a villain. It explores ideas like responsibility, control, and the consequences of trying to do too much. These themes are not presented in a heavy or complicated way. They are built into the story through the characters and their actions. The pacing of the film is generally strong, but there are moments where it feels slightly crowded. With so many characters and ideas, some parts move quickly. However, the film still manages to keep everything connected. From a production perspective, the film shows a high level of detail. The sets, the lighting, and the overall design all contribute to the experience. Nothing feels random or out of place. The balance between large-scale action and smaller character moments is one of the strongest aspects. The film does not rely only on spectacle. It also takes time to develop its characters. The performances across the board remain consistent. Each actor brings a level of focus that matches the tone of the film. Even in scenes with less action, there is still a sense of engagement. Another important factor is how the film builds its conflict. It does not introduce everything at once. It develops step by step, which makes the story easier to follow. The villain, Ultron, plays a key role in this. His presence is not just about power. It is about the idea he represents. That makes the conflict more meaningful. Overall, the film works because all its elements support each other. The story, the performances, the visuals, and the direction all come together in a way that feels connected. And that is what makes it more than just a typical action film. When you look deeper into how the film is structured, one thing becomes very clear: it is constantly trying to balance multiple layers at the same time, and that is both its strength and, in some moments, a slight challenge as well. The film is not built around a single simple idea. It combines action, character development, and thematic depth all together, and while that makes it richer, it also means that it has to manage a lot within a limited time. One of the biggest strengths is how it builds its central conflict. The problem in the story is not something that comes from outside randomly. It is created by the characters themselves. That automatically makes the situation more interesting because it adds responsibility to the narrative. Instead of a typical hero versus villain setup, there is an underlying idea that the heroes are also part of the problem. This adds a layer of complexity that keeps the story engaging. At the same time, the film does not make this idea too heavy. It presents it in a way that is easy to understand, allowing the audience to follow the story without feeling overwhelmed. The character development continues to be one of the strongest elements. Each character has a role, and that role is maintained throughout the film. There are no sudden changes that feel forced. Tony Stark remains at the center of the story's theme. His approach to solving problems reflects a larger idea about control and responsibility. The film shows both the positive and negative sides of that approach. Bruce Banner adds emotional depth, and his reactions often feel more grounded. This contrast between logic and emotion helps balance the story. The rest of the team supports this balance. Some characters bring energy, some bring seriousness, and others bring stability. This mix keeps the interactions interesting. From a direction point of view, the film does a strong job of managing tone. It moves between action and quiet moments without creating a sharp disconnect. This smooth transition helps maintain engagement. The cinematography also plays a role in this. During intense scenes, the camera movement increases, adding energy. During calmer moments, it becomes more stable, allowing the audience to focus on the characters. The visual effects continue to support the story rather than dominate it. Even though the film relies heavily on them, they feel integrated into the environment. The sound design adds another layer of realism. Every movement, every action, and every change in the environment is supported by sound that enhances the experience. The music remains consistent in its role. It supports the mood without becoming distracting. It rises when needed and fades when the scene requires more focus on dialogue. One area where the film feels slightly heavy is in the number of elements it tries to include. There are multiple characters, multiple ideas, and multiple locations. At times, this can make certain moments feel quick. However, the film manages to keep everything connected. Even when things move fast, there is still a sense of direction. The pacing overall remains strong. It does not stay too long in one place, which keeps the story moving. At the same time, it gives enough space for important moments to land. Another strong aspect is how the film builds its scale. It starts with a controlled environment and gradually expands into something much larger. This progression makes the climax feel earned. The villain continues to play a key role in maintaining that scale. Ultron is not just a physical threat. He represents an idea, and that idea drives the story forward. From an audience perspective, the film works because it offers more than just action. It provides a mix of entertainment and thought, which makes it more engaging. The balance between spectacle and emotion is handled well. Even during large-scale action, the film does not completely lose its focus on characters. The performances remain consistent throughout. Each actor stays within the tone of the film, which helps maintain a cohesive feel. From a production standpoint, the film shows a high level of planning. The environments, the lighting, and the overall design all contribute to a unified look. The casting also continues to be a major strength. The familiarity between actors adds to the realism of the team dynamic. Another important aspect is how the film sets up future possibilities without taking away from its own story. It leaves room for continuation while still providing a complete experience. Overall, the film succeeds because it understands what it wants to do. It combines action, character, and theme in a way that feels connected. Even with its complexity, it remains accessible, which is one of the reasons it works for a wide audience. Looking at how the film fits within a larger context, it becomes even more interesting because it is not just standing on its own. It comes after earlier events and also connects to what follows, and that creates a different kind of pressure on how the story is told. The film has to continue what came before while also introducing new ideas, and at the same time, it needs to prepare the ground for future developments. That balancing act is not easy, but the movie manages it in a way that feels mostly smooth. One of the key things that stands out is how the characters evolve compared to their earlier versions. They are not the same as before. Their experiences have changed them, and that change is visible in their behavior. Tony Stark, for example, feels more driven by the idea of control. His actions are influenced by what he has already seen, and that adds depth to his character. He is not just reacting to the present, he is trying to shape the future. This approach makes his character more complex, but it also creates conflict. The film does not present him as completely right or completely wrong. It allows the audience to see both sides. Bruce Banner continues to represent a more cautious perspective. His reactions feel grounded, and he often reflects the emotional side of the situation. This contrast between the two characters remains important throughout the story. The rest of the team also shows development, even if it is more subtle. Their interactions feel more natural, and their understanding of each other has improved. This adds to the overall strength of the group dynamic. From a direction point of view, the film maintains a consistent style. It does not try to change its approach too much. Instead, it focuses on refining what has already been established. The cinematography continues to support this consistency. The way scenes are framed, the movement of the camera, and the use of space all contribute to a unified visual style. The visual effects remain a major part of the film's identity. They are used extensively, but they do not feel separate from the story. They are integrated in a way that supports the narrative. The sound design and music also remain consistent. They adapt to the needs of each scene, adding intensity when required and stepping back when the focus is on characters. When comparing this film to others in a similar genre, what stands out is its attempt to combine scale with character depth. Many films focus more on action, but this one tries to give equal importance to both. That approach does create some challenges, especially in terms of pacing. There are moments where the film moves quickly because it has a lot to cover. However, it still manages to keep the overall story connected. Another important factor is how the film handles its tone. It mixes serious moments with lighter interactions, and while that balance is not always perfect, it keeps the film from becoming too heavy. From an audience perspective, this mix of tone makes the film more accessible. It does not stay in one emotional state for too long, which helps maintain engagement. The performances continue to be one of the strongest aspects. Each actor brings consistency to their role, and that helps maintain the identity of each character. The chemistry between the cast also plays a big role in the film's appeal. The interactions feel natural, and that makes the characters more relatable. The production quality remains high throughout. The environments, the lighting, and the overall design all contribute to a polished look. Another reason the film works is its ability to create memorable moments. These moments are not just about action, but also about character interactions and emotional beats. The villain continues to be an important part of the film's identity. Ultron represents a concept rather than just a physical threat, and that makes the conflict more meaningful. The film also benefits from its connection to a larger storyline. It feels like part of something bigger, and that adds to its impact. At the same time, it still provides a complete experience on its own. The main conflict is resolved, and the characters reach a new stage in their journey. The pacing, while sometimes fast, generally keeps the story moving in a way that holds attention. It does not spend too much time on one idea, which helps maintain momentum. Overall, the film manages to combine multiple elements in a way that feels mostly balanced. It is not perfect, but it succeeds in delivering both scale and depth. And that balance is what makes it stand out within its category. As everything comes together when you look at the film from start to finish, it starts to feel more complete, not just as a big action movie, but as a story that tries to explore its characters and their decisions in a deeper way. One of the most noticeable things is how the film builds its journey. It begins with confidence, moves into conflict, and then gradually shifts toward understanding. That structure gives the story a natural progression, making the ending feel earned instead of forced. The characters are at the center of that journey. Each one starts in a certain place and ends in a slightly different one. The changes are not extreme, but they are meaningful enough to be noticed. Tony Stark's character represents the core idea of the film. His attempt to control the future leads to unexpected consequences, and that becomes the main driving force of the story. What makes this interesting is that his intentions are not negative, but the outcome shows the risk of trying to control too much. Bruce Banner provides a contrast to that approach. His character reflects a more cautious and emotional perspective, which adds balance to the narrative. The rest of the team supports this balance. Their interactions show growth, even if it is subtle. The group dynamic changes over time, moving from simple coordination to a deeper understanding. From a direction point of view, the film remains consistent in its approach. It does not rely on sudden changes in style. Instead, it builds its identity through steady pacing and controlled transitions. The cinematography continues to support the story by adapting to each scene. Action sequences feel dynamic, while quieter moments feel stable and focused. The visual effects remain a key part of the experience. They are used to create scale, but they also stay connected to the story. This helps maintain immersion. The sound design adds another layer to that immersion. Every movement and impact feels grounded, making the scenes more engaging. The music supports the emotional and action-driven parts of the film. It does not dominate, but it enhances the mood when needed. When looking at the film's strengths, the balance between action and character stands out. It does not focus only on spectacle. It also takes time to develop its characters. The performances play a major role in this. Each actor brings consistency and depth to their role, which helps maintain the film's tone. The chemistry between the cast also adds to the experience. Their interactions feel natural, which makes the characters more relatable. At the same time, the film does have moments where it feels slightly crowded. With so many characters and ideas, some parts move quickly. However, it still manages to keep everything connected. The pacing generally works in the film's favor. It keeps the story moving without losing focus, even when multiple elements are involved. Another strong aspect is how the film handles its themes. It explores ideas like responsibility and control without making them overly complex. These ideas are built into the story rather than being explained directly. The villain also plays an important role in supporting these themes. Ultron is not just a physical threat. He represents the consequences of the main character's decisions. From an audience perspective, the film offers a mix of entertainment and depth. It provides large-scale action while also giving attention to character development. The production quality remains high throughout. The design, lighting, and overall presentation all contribute to a polished experience. The film also leaves room for continuation. It feels like part of a larger story, but it still provides a complete experience on its own. As a final impression, the movie succeeds because it combines multiple elements in a way that feels connected. The story, characters, and production all support each other. It may not be perfect, but it delivers a strong and engaging experience that stands out within its genre. And when you look back at it, it feels less like just a superhero film and more like a story about choices, consequences, and how those choices shape the future. As you step back and think about the entire film one more time, it starts to feel like a complete journey rather than just a series of action scenes connected together. The beginning, the middle, and the ending all link in a way that makes sense, and that is something that helps the movie stay memorable even after it ends. One of the biggest reasons for that is how the film builds its characters alongside the action. It does not treat them as just part of the spectacle. Instead, it gives them space to grow, react, and change. That makes the experience feel more personal. Tony Stark's journey is the clearest example of this. He starts with a strong belief in his idea, moves through the consequences of that belief, and then reaches a point where he understands its limits. This kind of progression adds depth to his character without needing heavy explanations. Bruce Banner also leaves a strong impression because of how grounded his character feels. His reactions are often quieter, but they carry emotional weight. That balance between logic and emotion is important for the overall story. The rest of the team supports this journey in different ways. Each character contributes something unique, whether it is strength, strategy, or emotional connection. Together, they create a dynamic that feels complete. From a production point of view, the film maintains a consistent level of quality throughout. The visual effects are detailed, the environments feel large, and the overall presentation stays strong from beginning to end. The cinematography plays a key role in shaping the experience. It adapts to each moment, becoming more dynamic during action and more stable during quieter scenes. This flexibility helps maintain the flow of the film. The sound design adds depth to every scene. Each movement, each impact, and each environmental change feels supported, making the world feel more real. The music continues to support the tone without overpowering it. It rises during key moments and steps back when needed, allowing the scenes to carry their own weight. Another important aspect is how the film balances its tone. It moves between serious and lighter moments without feeling disconnected. This balance keeps the film engaging and prevents it from becoming too heavy. The pacing, while occasionally fast due to the number of elements involved, still manages to keep the story moving in a clear direction. It does not lose focus even when handling multiple characters and ideas. The villain plays a strong role in maintaining that focus. Ultron represents more than just a threat. He reflects the central idea of the story, which makes the conflict more meaningful. From an audience perspective, the film works because it offers both entertainment and substance. It provides action, but it also gives something to think about. The performances remain consistent across the board. Each actor stays true to their character, and that consistency helps maintain the identity of the film. The chemistry between the cast adds another layer to the experience. Their interactions feel natural, which makes the characters more relatable. The film also benefits from its connection to a larger storyline. It feels like part of something bigger, which adds to its impact. At the same time, it still manages to stand on its own. The main story is complete, and the character arcs feel resolved. As a final impression, the film succeeds because it brings together all its elements in a balanced way. The story, the characters, and the production all support each other. It may have moments where it feels slightly crowded, but it never completely loses its direction. And that is what makes it an engaging experience from start to finish. So overall, Avengers Age of Ultron delivers a mix of action, character development, and strong production quality, making it a film that works on multiple levels. When you take another step back and start looking at the film more carefully, one thing becomes very clear: it's not just about what is happening on screen, but how everything is connected underneath. The movie keeps building on its ideas even after the main conflict is over, and that's what gives it more depth. The concept of control versus consequence stays present throughout the film, and it never really disappears. Even in the final moments, you can feel that the story is not just about stopping a threat, it is about understanding the limits of power. Tony Stark's journey reflects this idea the most. His decisions come from a place of logic, but the outcome shows that logic alone is not enough. There are factors that cannot be controlled, and that realization becomes a key part of his character. What makes this effective is how naturally it is shown. There is no direct explanation. It is all built through actions and reactions. That approach keeps the story engaging without making it feel heavy. Bruce Banner continues to add emotional balance to the story. His character represents the side that questions things, that hesitates, and that feels the weight of decisions more deeply. This contrast is important because it prevents the story from becoming one-sided. The rest of the team also reflects different perspectives. Some characters focus on action, some focus on strategy, and some bring emotional support. This variety creates a layered dynamic within the group. From a direction point of view, the film shows a strong understanding of how to manage these layers. It moves between different tones without creating a sharp disconnect. The transitions feel smooth, which helps maintain the flow. The cinematography continues to support this by adapting to each moment. It becomes more dynamic during action and more stable during character-focused scenes. This balance helps maintain clarity. The visual effects remain consistent in quality. They are used to create scale, but they never feel separate from the story. Everything feels connected to the environment. The sound design also plays a role in maintaining immersion. Each scene feels supported by sound that adds weight and detail. The music continues to guide the tone of the film. It enhances the emotional moments and supports the action without becoming distracting. One interesting aspect of the film is how it handles its pacing over a longer period. Even though some moments feel fast, the overall structure remains clear. The story moves forward in a way that feels organized. The balance between action and character remains one of the strongest elements. The film does not rely only on spectacle. It also gives time to develop its characters. The performances continue to support this balance. Each actor stays consistent, and that helps maintain the identity of the film. The chemistry between the cast remains a key strength. Their interactions feel natural, which adds to the realism of the story. Another important factor is how the film connects its ideas to future possibilities. It does not close everything completely. Instead, it leaves room for continuation. This approach works well because it keeps the story open without making the ending feel incomplete. From an audience perspective, the film offers a mix of entertainment and depth. It provides large-scale action while also exploring meaningful ideas. The production quality remains high throughout. The design, lighting, and overall presentation all contribute to a polished experience. The film also benefits from its ability to create memorable moments. These moments come from both action and character interactions. Ultron's role continues to stand out because he represents more than just a villain. He reflects the consequences of the main character's actions. This makes the conflict feel more meaningful and connected to the story. Overall, the film maintains a strong balance between its different elements. It combines story, character, and production in a way that feels connected. Even with its complexity, it remains accessible and engaging. And that is what allows it to leave a lasting impression. When you start paying attention to the smaller details in the film, you begin to notice how much effort has gone into making everything feel connected, even beyond the main storyline. It's not just about the big moments. It's also about the little choices that shape how the story feels overall. One of the most interesting aspects is how the film uses its characters to reflect different ideas without directly explaining them. Each character reacts to situations in their own way, and those reactions add layers to the narrative. Tony Stark represents the idea of control. His actions are driven by the need to prevent future problems, but the film shows that this approach comes with risks. What makes this effective is that it is not presented as completely wrong. It is shown as something that has both positive and negative sides. Bruce Banner reflects a more cautious mindset. His reactions often feel more emotional and grounded. He questions things more, and that adds balance to the story. The rest of the team contributes to this balance in different ways. Some characters bring energy, some bring stability, and some bring perspective. Together, they create a dynamic that feels complete. The direction supports this by giving each character enough space to express their role. Even in scenes where multiple characters are present, the focus shifts in a way that allows each one to stand out. The cinematography continues to play a strong role in this. The way scenes are framed, the use of lighting, and the movement of the camera all contribute to the storytelling. The visual effects remain consistent and detailed. They are used to create scale, but they also support the environment. This helps maintain immersion. The sound design adds another layer of detail. Every movement and impact feels supported, which makes the scenes more engaging. The music continues to guide the tone of the film. It enhances the emotional moments and supports the action without becoming overwhelming. Another interesting element is how the film builds tension through pacing. It does not rely only on fast scenes. It also uses slower moments to create anticipation. These quieter moments allow the audience to process what is happening and prepare for what comes next. This balance between fast and slow pacing keeps the film engaging. The performances continue to be a strong point. Each actor stays consistent, and that helps maintain the identity of the characters. The chemistry between the cast remains natural. Their interactions feel real, which adds to the overall experience. From a production perspective, the film shows a high level of detail. The environments, the lighting, and the overall design all contribute to a cohesive look. The film also benefits from how it connects its smaller moments to the larger story. Nothing feels completely random. Even minor details have a purpose. Ultron continues to stand out as a character because of what he represents. He is not just a physical threat. He reflects the consequences of the main idea of the film. This makes the conflict feel more meaningful and connected to the story. From an audience perspective, the film works because it offers more than just action. It provides a mix of entertainment and thought. The balance between spectacle and emotion remains strong. Even during large-scale sequences, the film does not completely lose its focus on characters. The pacing, while occasionally quick, still maintains a clear direction. The story continues to move forward without losing focus. Another strong aspect is how the film leaves room for interpretation. It does not explain everything directly. It allows the audience to think about certain aspects. This approach adds depth and makes the film more engaging. Overall, the film continues to maintain a strong balance between its different elements. It combines action, character, and theme in a way that feels connected. Even when focusing on smaller details, the story remains clear and engaging. And that attention to detail is one of the reasons why the film feels complete. When you go even deeper into how the film is put together, you start noticing that a lot of its strength comes from technical decisions that don't always stand out immediately, but they quietly shape the entire experience. One of the biggest things here is how the film manages visual rhythm. It's not just about what is shown, but how it is shown. The transitions between scenes, the way action flows into dialogue, and how the camera shifts focus all contribute to a smooth viewing experience. The editing plays a very important role in this. Even though there are many characters and multiple storylines happening at the same time, the film rarely feels disconnected. Each cut feels purposeful, and scenes are arranged in a way that keeps the narrative moving forward. This becomes especially noticeable during sequences where different characters are in different places. Instead of feeling scattered, everything feels linked. The transitions guide the audience from one moment to another without confusion. The cinematography also supports this flow. The camera is not just capturing action, it is guiding attention. When the scene needs energy, the camera becomes more dynamic. When the focus is on characters, it becomes more stable. Lighting is another subtle but important element. It changes depending on the tone of the scene. Brighter tones are used in moments where things feel under control, while darker tones appear when tension increases. These changes are not too obvious, but they affect how the scene feels. The production design continues to add depth to the film. Each location feels distinct, and that helps create variety. At the same time, there is a consistent style that keeps everything connected. The visual effects remain a major part of the film's identity, but what makes them effective is how they are integrated. They are not just there for spectacle. They are part of the environment, which makes everything feel more real. Sound design also contributes to this realism. Every movement, every impact, and every shift in the environment is supported by sound that adds detail. This makes the scenes feel more immersive. The music continues to support the overall tone. It does not dominate the scenes, but it enhances them. It rises during key moments and becomes subtle when needed. Another interesting aspect is how the film controls its pacing through technical elements. It does not rely only on the story to create rhythm. The editing, the camera work, and the sound all work together to maintain balance. The performances also benefit from this technical support. The way scenes are framed and edited allows the actors' expressions to stand out. This helps bring out the emotional side of the story. The chemistry between the cast continues to feel natural. Even in scenes with multiple characters, the interactions remain clear and engaging. From a storytelling perspective, the film maintains a strong connection between its technical side and its narrative. The visuals, the sound, and the editing all support the story rather than distract from it. Ultron's presence also benefits from this approach. The way he is presented visually and through sound design adds to his impact. His character feels more complete because of how these elements are used. The film also shows consistency in how it handles its themes. The idea of control and consequence continues to be present, not just in dialogue, but in how scenes are constructed. From an audience point of view, these technical choices may not always be obvious, but they make a difference in how the film feels. They create a smoother and more engaging experience. The pacing remains balanced, even with the complexity of the story. The film knows when to slow down and when to move forward quickly. The production quality continues to stand out. Every element, from design to sound, contributes to a polished final product. Another important factor is how the film avoids unnecessary distraction. Even with all its elements, it stays focused on its main story. The performances remain consistent, and that helps maintain the identity of the film. The overall structure continues to feel organized, even with multiple layers. By focusing on both technical and narrative elements, the film creates a complete experience that works on multiple levels. And that is what allows it to remain engaging even when you look at it more closely. When you look at the overall impact of the film, especially after going through all its layers, one thing becomes clear: it leaves behind more than just its story. It creates a certain impression that stays even after the movie ends. This comes from how the film connects its action with its ideas. It is not just about what happens, but about what those events represent. The concept of trying to control the future and dealing with the consequences of that attempt becomes something that continues to feel relevant even after the story is over. Tony Stark's journey plays a big role in shaping that impact. His decisions are not presented as simple mistakes. They are shown as complex choices with real consequences. That makes his character more relatable, even in a larger-than-life setting. Bruce Banner adds another layer to this impact. His character reflects the emotional side of the story. His reactions remind the audience that even in a world of advanced technology and powerful heroes, there are still human feelings involved. The rest of the team contributes to the overall impression by showing how different individuals respond to the same situation. Some focus on action, some on strategy, and some on emotional understanding. This variety makes the story feel more complete. From a direction point of view, the film maintains a consistent tone that helps reinforce this impact. It does not suddenly shift into something completely different at the end. Instead, it stays within its established style. The cinematography continues to support this by keeping a balance between scale and clarity. The visuals feel large, but they never lose focus. The visual effects remain strong throughout, and they contribute to the lasting impression of the film. The environments feel detailed, and the action feels connected to those environments. The sound design also plays a role in creating this impact. Every movement and every moment feels supported by sound that adds depth. The music continues to enhance the emotional tone. It helps connect the scenes and adds continuity to the experience. One of the most important aspects of the film's impact is how it handles its characters. They are not just part of the action. They are part of the story in a meaningful way. The performances remain consistent, and that helps maintain the connection between the audience and the characters. The chemistry between the cast continues to feel natural, which adds to the realism of the story. From a production perspective, the film shows a high level of detail and planning. Everything feels connected, and nothing feels out of place. Another reason the film leaves a strong impression is how it builds its conflict. The problem is not external in a simple way. It comes from within, and that makes it more engaging. Ultron continues to represent that internal conflict. He is not just a villain, but a reflection of the main idea of the story. This makes the resolution feel more meaningful because it is not just about defeating an enemy. It is about understanding what led to that situation. From an audience perspective, the film works because it offers both entertainment and depth. It provides large-scale action, but it also gives something to think about. The pacing, while occasionally fast, still maintains a clear direction. The story continues to move forward without losing focus. Another important factor is how the film connects to a larger narrative. It feels like part of something bigger, which adds to its impact. At the same time, it still stands on its own. The main story feels complete, and the character arcs feel resolved. The balance between spectacle and emotion remains one of the film's strongest qualities. Even during large scenes, the focus on characters is never completely lost. The production quality remains consistent, contributing to a polished and engaging experience. As a final impression, the film leaves behind a sense of continuity. It feels like a chapter in a larger story, but also a complete experience on its own. And that balance is what allows it to remain memorable. As everything comes together in the end, the film starts to feel less like just a sequence of events and more like a complete experience that has a clear beginning, middle, and resolution. The journey from confidence to conflict and then toward understanding gives the story a natural progression. One of the most important things about this film is how it handles consequences. It doesn't ignore what happens. Instead, it builds its entire narrative around the idea that actions have results, and those results shape what comes next. Tony Stark's character is central to this idea. His intention to protect the world leads to something that he cannot fully control, and that becomes the core of the story. What makes this interesting is that his actions are not shown as purely wrong. They are shown as complicated. Bruce Banner continues to provide emotional balance. His character reflects the hesitation and the awareness that comes with understanding the risks. This contrast between the two perspectives adds depth to the narrative. The rest of the team contributes to the overall journey by showing how different individuals respond to the same situation. This variety makes the group dynamic feel more realistic. From a direction point of view, the film maintains consistency until the very end. It does not try to suddenly change its style. It continues with the same approach, allowing the story to feel complete. The cinematography supports this by keeping a balance between movement and stability. Action scenes feel dynamic, while quieter moments feel grounded. The visual effects remain strong and integrated. They are not just there for spectacle. They support the story and help create a believable environment. The sound design adds depth to every scene. Each movement and impact feels supported, which enhances immersion. The music continues to guide the emotional tone. It rises when needed and fades when the focus shifts to characters. The pacing of the film, when viewed as a whole, feels structured. It moves forward without losing direction, even when handling multiple elements. The performances remain consistent across the entire film. Each actor maintains their character, which helps keep the story cohesive. The chemistry between the cast adds to the realism of the interactions. Their conversations and reactions feel natural. Another important aspect is how the film leaves room for future developments. It does not close everything completely. Instead, it suggests that there is more to come. This approach works well because it keeps the story open while still providing a satisfying conclusion. From an audience perspective, the film offers a mix of entertainment and depth. It delivers action, but it also explores meaningful ideas. The balance between spectacle and emotion is one of the key reasons the film works. It does not rely only on visual scale. It also focuses on character development. The production quality remains high throughout, contributing to a polished final result. Ultron's role as a character continues to stand out because he represents more than just a physical threat. He reflects the consequences of the main idea of the film. This makes the conflict feel more meaningful and connected. As a final impression, the film succeeds because it brings together its story, characters, and technical elements in a balanced way. It may not be perfect, but it delivers an experience that feels complete and engaging. And when you look back at it, it feels like more than just a superhero film. It becomes a story about decisions, responsibility, and how those decisions shape the future. So overall, Avengers Age of Ultron manages to combine large-scale action with character-driven storytelling, creating a film that works on multiple levels and leaves a lasting impression. If you keep thinking about the film even after finishing it, another layer starts to become clearer, and that is how much of it is built around perspective. The same events can feel different depending on how you look at them, and the movie quietly allows that space. Tony Stark's actions, for example, can be seen in two ways. On one side, he is trying to protect the world in advance, which feels responsible. On the other side, he is taking control of something that may be too complex to manage, which creates risk. The film never forces you to pick one side completely. This balance is what makes the story more engaging. It does not tell you exactly what to think. It shows you the situation and lets you understand it from different angles. Bruce Banner continues to reflect that second perspective. His reactions often feel more careful and emotional. He represents the idea of thinking before acting, even when the pressure is high. The rest of the team adds more variety to this perspective. Some characters are focused on immediate action, while others are more concerned about the long-term impact. This mix creates a layered dynamic. From a direction point of view, the film supports these perspectives by allowing scenes to unfold naturally. It does not rush important moments. It gives enough space for the audience to understand what is happening. The cinematography continues to play a role in guiding attention. The camera focuses on what matters in each moment, whether it is action or character reaction. Lighting also contributes to the mood. Brighter tones are used in controlled situations, while darker tones appear when tension increases. These changes are subtle but effective. The visual effects remain consistent and well integrated. They help create the scale of the story without taking away from its emotional side. The sound design adds another layer of immersion. Each movement and impact feels grounded, which makes the scenes more believable. The music continues to support the tone without dominating it. It enhances the scenes while allowing the story to remain the focus. Another important aspect is how the film handles its structure over time. It builds its story step by step, gradually increasing the stakes. This progression makes the final moments feel earned. The pacing continues to balance speed and clarity. Even when the film moves quickly, it does not lose direction. The performances remain consistent, and that helps maintain the identity of the characters. Each actor stays within the tone of the film. The chemistry between the cast continues to feel natural, which adds to the realism of the interactions. From a production perspective, the film maintains a high level of detail. The environments, the design, and the overall presentation all contribute to a cohesive look. Another interesting element is how the film connects its smaller moments to its larger themes. Even simple interactions can reflect bigger ideas. Ultron continues to represent the central conflict in a deeper way. He is not just reacting to the Avengers. He is the result of their actions, and that connection makes the story more meaningful. From an audience perspective, this layered approach makes the film more engaging. It offers more than just action. It provides something to think about. The balance between spectacle and depth remains one of the film's strongest qualities. It keeps the story interesting without making it too heavy. The pacing, while occasionally fast, still maintains a clear structure. The story continues to move forward in a way that feels organized. Another factor that adds to the film's strength is how it builds continuity. It feels connected to a larger world while still telling its own story. The production quality remains consistent, contributing to a polished experience. As you reflect on everything, the film starts to feel like a combination of multiple elements working together. The story, the characters, and the technical aspects all support each other. And that is what allows it to stay engaging even when you look at it from different perspectives. As you keep reflecting on the film, another layer starts becoming more noticeable, and that is how much of the experience depends on how the audience connects with the characters rather than just the events. The story itself is structured around big moments, but what gives those moments meaning is the emotional connection behind them. Without that connection, the scale would not feel as impactful. Tony Stark remains central to that connection. His decisions are not just plot points, they are tied to his personality and his way of thinking. The idea that he wants to prevent future threats is understandable, and that makes his actions feel more grounded. At the same time, the film shows that even well-intended decisions can lead to unexpected outcomes. This idea is presented through his journey without making it overly complex. Bruce Banner continues to add emotional depth. His character reflects hesitation and awareness, which creates a contrast with Tony's more forward approach. This balance keeps the story from feeling one-sided. The rest of the team contributes to the emotional layer by reacting in different ways. Some focus on action, some on support, and some on understanding. This variety adds realism to the group dynamic. From a direction point of view, the film supports this emotional connection by allowing scenes to focus on characters when needed. It does not stay in constant action. It gives space for reactions and interactions. The cinematography continues to guide attention effectively. The camera focuses on expressions and reactions during important moments, which helps build that connection. Lighting plays a subtle role in shaping the mood. It adjusts based on the tone of each scene, helping create a consistent atmosphere. The visual effects remain strong, but they never take over the emotional side of the story. They support the scale without reducing the importance of the characters. The sound design adds to the immersion by making every movement feel real. This helps maintain engagement even during quieter scenes. The music continues to support the tone. It enhances emotional moments and adds intensity to action when needed. Another interesting aspect is how the film handles audience expectations. It does not always follow a simple or predictable path. It introduces situations that require the audience to think about what is happening. This approach keeps the story engaging because it does not rely only on action. It also relies on ideas. The pacing continues to balance movement and clarity. Even when the story moves quickly, it does not feel disorganized. The performances remain consistent and strong. Each actor stays within the tone of the film, which helps maintain a cohesive experience. The chemistry between the cast continues to feel natural. Their interactions make the characters more relatable. From a production perspective, the film maintains a high level of detail. The environments, design, and overall presentation all contribute to a polished look. Another factor that adds to the film's depth is how it connects its ideas across different scenes. The themes are not limited to one moment. They appear in different forms throughout the story. Ultron continues to represent those themes in a strong way. He is not just a physical threat. He reflects the consequences of the main idea of the film. This makes the conflict feel more meaningful and connected. From an audience perspective, the film works because it offers a combination of entertainment and thought. It provides action, but it also encourages reflection. The balance between spectacle and emotion remains one of its strongest qualities. The pacing, while sometimes fast, still maintains a clear direction. The story continues to move forward without losing focus. Another important aspect is how the film leaves room for interpretation. It does not explain everything directly. It allows the audience to form their own understanding. This adds depth and makes the film more engaging. Overall, the film continues to build on its strengths even after the main story is complete. It maintains a connection between its characters, its themes, and its technical elements. And that is what allows it to stay interesting even when you think about it more deeply. When you think about the film after going through all its layers, what really stays is not just the events, but the overall feeling it leaves behind. It creates an impression that goes beyond the action and visuals, and that impression is built through how everything connects. One of the strongest aspects of this film is how it turns a large-scale story into something that still feels personal. Even though the stakes are massive, the focus keeps coming back to the characters and their decisions. Tony Stark's journey is a major part of that impact. His attempt to control the future reflects a mindset that is easy to understand, but the outcome shows how complicated that idea can become. The film does not present him as simply right or wrong. It allows the audience to see both sides. Bruce Banner adds to this by representing a more cautious and emotional perspective. His reactions feel grounded, and they remind the audience that there is always another side to every decision. The rest of the team contributes to this balance. Each character reacts differently, and those reactions create a more complete picture of the situation. From a direction point of view, the film maintains a consistent approach that supports this balance. It does not suddenly change tone or style. It keeps building on what it has already established. The cinematography continues to guide the experience by keeping a balance between scale and clarity. The visuals feel large, but they never lose focus. The visual effects remain a major strength. They help create the world of the film while staying connected to the story. The sound design adds depth to every scene. Each movement and impact feels supported, which enhances immersion. The music continues to support the tone without becoming distracting. It enhances the scenes while allowing the story to remain the focus. Another important aspect is how the film handles its themes in a way that stays with the audience. It explores ideas like responsibility and consequence without making them overly complex. These ideas are presented through the characters rather than direct explanation, which makes them more engaging. The pacing of the film, when viewed as a whole, feels structured. It moves forward without losing direction, even when handling multiple elements. The performances remain consistent, and that helps maintain the identity of the characters. The chemistry between the cast continues to feel natural, which adds to the realism of the interactions. From a production perspective, the film shows a high level of detail and planning. Everything feels connected, and nothing feels out of place. Another reason the film leaves a lasting impression is how it connects its smaller moments to its larger ideas. Even simple interactions can reflect deeper themes. Ultron continues to stand out because he represents more than just a villain. He reflects the consequences of the main idea of the story. This makes the conflict feel more meaningful and connected. From an audience perspective, the film works because it offers more than just entertainment. It provides a mix of action and thought, which makes it more engaging. The balance between spectacle and emotion remains one of its strongest qualities. The film also benefits from its connection to a larger narrative. It feels like part of something bigger, which adds to its impact. At the same time, it still stands on its own. The main story feels complete, and the character arcs feel resolved. Another important factor is how the film encourages reflection. It does not give all the answers directly. It allows the audience to think about what they have seen. This approach adds depth and makes the film more memorable. As a final takeaway, the film succeeds because it combines multiple elements in a balanced way. The story, the characters, and the production all support each other. It may not be perfect, but it delivers an experience that feels complete and engaging. And when you look back at it, it feels like more than just a superhero film. It becomes a story about choices, consequences, and how those choices shape everything that follows. When everything is fully looked at from beginning to end, the film starts to feel like a complete cycle rather than just a single storyline. It begins with control, moves through chaos, and then settles into understanding. That progression is what gives the movie its structure and makes it feel connected. What stands out the most is how the film treats its central idea. It doesn't simplify it. Instead, it allows it to grow through the story. The idea of trying to protect the future by controlling it sounds logical at first, but as the events unfold, the complexity of that idea becomes clearer. Tony Stark's character carries that idea from start to finish. His journey is not about becoming completely right or completely wrong. It is about realizing the limits of what he believed. That makes his character feel more realistic. Bruce Banner continues to balance that perspective by showing the emotional side of the story. His reactions remind the audience that decisions are not just logical, they also have emotional consequences. The rest of the team reflects how different individuals deal with the same situation. Some focus on action, some on understanding, and some on maintaining stability. This variety adds depth to the group dynamic. From a direction point of view, the film remains consistent in how it presents its story. It does not try to suddenly change its style. It builds everything step by step, allowing the audience to stay connected. The cinematography supports this consistency by adjusting to each scene. Action sequences feel dynamic, while quieter moments feel stable and focused. The visual effects remain strong and well integrated. They help create scale, but they never disconnect from the story. The sound design continues to add depth to every scene. Each movement and impact feels supported, making the experience more immersive. The music follows the emotional tone of the film. It rises when needed and becomes subtle when the focus shifts to characters. The pacing of the film, when viewed as a whole, feels structured. It moves forward without losing direction, even when handling multiple layers. The performances remain consistent across the entire film. Each actor maintains their character, which helps keep the story cohesive. The chemistry between the cast adds to the realism of the interactions. Their conversations and reactions feel natural. Another important aspect is how the film connects its smaller moments to its larger themes. Even simple interactions reflect deeper ideas. Ultron continues to represent the consequences of the central concept. He is not just a villain, but a result of the choices made by the characters. This makes the conflict feel more meaningful and connected to the story. From an audience perspective, the film works because it offers both entertainment and depth. It provides action, but it also encourages reflection. The balance between spectacle and emotion remains one of its strongest qualities. The film also benefits from its connection to a larger world. It feels like part of something bigger, which adds to its impact. At the same time, it still stands on its own. The main story feels complete, and the character arcs feel resolved. Another key factor is how the film leaves a lasting impression. It does not rely only on visuals. It relies on the connection between its characters and its ideas. This is what makes it memorable. And as a final closing thought, the film shows that even in a world filled with powerful heroes, the biggest challenges often come from decisions, not from enemies. That idea gives the story a deeper meaning and makes it more than just an action film. So overall, Avengers Age of Ultron delivers a balanced experience that combines large-scale action with character-driven storytelling, making it a film that works on multiple levels and leaves a lasting impact. And that's what makes it worth watching and revisiting. When you continue thinking about the film beyond its ending, another important aspect starts to stand out, and that is how it handles the idea of responsibility in a very layered way. It is not presented as something simple. Instead, it is shown through different characters and their choices. Tony Stark represents a version of responsibility that is focused on control. He believes that if he can prevent future threats in advance, then he is doing the right thing. That mindset is understandable, especially considering everything the team has already faced. But the film also shows that this approach has limits. Trying to control everything can lead to situations that are even harder to manage. This idea is not explained directly, it is shown through the events of the story. Bruce Banner reflects a different side of responsibility. His approach is more cautious. He is aware of the risks and often hesitates before making decisions. This contrast between the two characters creates a strong dynamic. The rest of the team adds more perspectives to this idea. Each character responds differently to the situation, and those differences make the story feel more complete. From a direction point of view, the film supports these ideas by allowing scenes to focus on character reactions. It does not rely only on action to move the story forward. The cinematography continues to guide attention in a way that highlights these reactions. The camera focuses on expressions and interactions, making the emotional side of the story more visible. Lighting plays a subtle role in shaping the tone. It adjusts based on the situation, helping create a consistent atmosphere. The visual effects remain strong, but they are used in a way that supports the narrative. They do not take away from the characters. The sound design continues to add depth. Every movement and impact feels supported, which enhances immersion. The music follows the emotional tone of the scenes. It rises when needed and becomes subtle when the focus shifts to characters. Another interesting aspect is how the film builds continuity. It connects its ideas across different moments, making the story feel cohesive. The pacing continues to balance speed and clarity. Even when the story moves quickly, it remains easy to follow. The performances remain consistent, and that helps maintain the identity of the characters. The chemistry between the cast continues to feel natural, which adds to the realism of the interactions. From a production perspective, the film maintains a high level of detail. The environments, design, and overall presentation all contribute to a polished look. Another important factor is how the film connects its smaller moments to its larger themes. Even simple interactions can reflect deeper ideas. Ultron continues to represent the consequences of the central concept. He is not just a physical threat, but a reflection of the character's decisions. This makes the conflict feel more meaningful and connected. From an audience perspective, the film works because it offers more than just action. It provides a mix of entertainment and thought. The balance between spectacle and emotion remains one of its strongest qualities. The film also benefits from how it allows the audience to interpret its ideas. It does not explain everything directly, which makes it more engaging. The pacing, while occasionally fast, still maintains a clear direction. The story continues to move forward without losing focus. Another aspect that stands out is how the film maintains its tone even as it handles multiple elements. It does not feel inconsistent. The production quality remains high throughout, contributing to a polished experience. As you reflect on everything, the film starts to feel like a combination of different elements working together. The story, the characters, and the technical aspects all support each other. And that is what allows it to remain engaging even when you think about it more deeply. As the reflection goes even further, another important idea starts to stand out, and that is how the film treats the concept of limits. Every character in the story, no matter how powerful, reaches a point where they have to face what they can and cannot control. This idea connects directly with everything that happens. The story is not just about strength or intelligence. It is about understanding where those things stop being enough. Tony Stark's journey continues to represent this idea clearly. He starts with a belief that he can create a solution for future problems, but as the events unfold, it becomes clear that not everything can be predicted or controlled. That realization is not shown through one big moment, but through the overall progression of the story. Bruce Banner reflects another side of this idea. He already understands the risks, but he is still part of the process. His character shows that even awareness does not always prevent mistakes. This adds another layer to the narrative. The rest of the team contributes to this theme in their own ways. Each character faces situations where their abilities are tested, and those moments highlight their limits. From a direction point of view, the film supports this by allowing scenes to focus on reactions rather than just action. It does not always show characters succeeding easily. It shows struggle, and that makes the story more engaging. The cinematography continues to guide the experience. The camera focuses on what matters in each moment, whether it is a large action scene or a small emotional reaction. Lighting plays a subtle role in shaping the tone. It shifts based on the intensity of the situation, helping create a consistent atmosphere. The visual effects remain strong and integrated. They create scale, but they also support the environment, making everything feel connected. The sound design continues to add depth. Every movement and impact feels supported, which enhances immersion. The music follows the emotional tone of the film. It becomes stronger during key moments and more subtle when the focus is on characters. Another interesting aspect is how the film builds its narrative over time. It does not present everything at once. It develops its ideas gradually, which makes the story easier to follow. The pacing continues to balance speed and clarity. Even when the story moves quickly, it remains organized. The performances remain consistent, and that helps maintain the identity of the characters. Each actor stays within the tone of the film. The chemistry between the cast continues to feel natural. Their interactions make the characters more relatable. From a production perspective, the film maintains a high level of detail. The environments, design, and overall presentation all contribute to a cohesive look. Another important factor is how the film connects its themes across different scenes. The idea of limits appears in different forms throughout the story. Ultron continues to represent this idea in a unique way. He is not limited in the same way as the characters, and that contrast makes the conflict more interesting. This difference highlights the main challenge the Avengers face. They are powerful, but they are still human, and that creates tension. From an audience perspective, this theme adds depth to the story. It makes the film more than just a series of action sequences. The balance between spectacle and meaning remains one of the film's strongest qualities. The pacing, while occasionally fast, still maintains a clear direction. The story continues to move forward without losing focus. Another aspect that stands out is how the film maintains consistency. It does not suddenly change its tone or style. It builds everything step by step. The production quality remains high throughout, contributing to a polished experience. As you continue to reflect on the film, it starts to feel like a combination of different ideas working together. The story, the characters, and the technical elements all support each other. And that is what allows it to remain engaging even when you think about it more deeply. As the discussion moves closer to its final stage, the film starts to feel even more complete when you look at how all its ideas connect together. It is no longer just about individual scenes or moments. It becomes about the overall meaning that forms when everything is viewed as one continuous experience. One of the strongest elements at this stage is how the film brings together its themes without needing to repeat them directly. The idea of control, responsibility, and limits has already been explored, and now it feels fully established. Tony Stark's journey continues to represent this combination of ideas. His character reflects both the strength of taking action and the risk of going too far. By the end of the story, his perspective feels more balanced, even if it is not completely resolved. Bruce Banner continues to support that balance. His character reflects awareness and emotional depth, which adds another layer to the story. The contrast between the two characters remains one of the most important aspects of the film. The rest of the team continues to contribute to this overall balance. Each character brings a different perspective, and together they create a complete picture of how the situation is handled. From a direction point of view, the film remains consistent in how it presents its story. It does not introduce sudden changes. Instead, it continues to build on what has already been established. The cinematography supports this consistency by maintaining a balance between movement and stability. The visuals remain clear and focused. The visual effects continue to be a major part of the film, but they remain connected to the story. They enhance the experience without taking over. The sound design continues to add depth to every scene. Each movement and impact feels supported, which enhances immersion. The music follows the emotional tone of the film. It supports both action and character moments without becoming overwhelming. Another important aspect is how the film maintains its pacing even as it approaches the final stretch. It does not slow down too much, but it also does not rush. The performances remain consistent, and that helps maintain the identity of the characters. Each actor stays within the tone of the film. The chemistry between the cast continues to feel natural, which adds to the realism of the interactions. From a production perspective, the film maintains a high level of detail. Everything feels connected and carefully designed. Another interesting element is how the film allows its themes to stay present without forcing them. The ideas are built into the story rather than explained directly. Ultron continues to represent the consequences of the central concept. His presence remains meaningful because of what he represents. From an audience perspective, the film continues to offer a balance between entertainment and depth. It provides action, but it also gives something to think about. The pacing, while occasionally fast, still maintains a clear direction. The story continues to move forward without losing focus. Another factor that stands out is how the film maintains its tone across all its elements. It does not feel inconsistent. The production quality remains high throughout, contributing to a polished experience. As everything comes together, the film starts to feel like a unified piece rather than separate parts. And that is what makes it satisfying to reflect on. As everything moves closer to the final conclusion, the film begins to feel more focused in terms of what it wants to leave behind. At this stage, it is not adding new ideas anymore. Instead, it is strengthening the ones that have already been built throughout the story. The most noticeable thing here is how clearly the central themes are now connected. The idea of control, the responsibility that comes with power, and the limits of both are no longer separate concepts. They feel like part of one complete message. Tony Stark's journey reflects this connection very clearly. He begins with a strong belief in his ability to protect the future, but by this point, that belief has evolved. It is no longer about complete control. It is about understanding that some things cannot be fully predicted. This shift does not come from a single moment. It comes from everything that has happened along the way. That is what makes it feel natural. Bruce Banner continues to support this idea by representing the emotional and cautious side of the story. His character shows that awareness alone is not always enough, but it is still important. The rest of the team adds to this balance by showing how different individuals deal with the same situation. Some focus on action, some on stability, and some on understanding. Together, they create a complete picture. From a direction point of view, the film maintains a steady approach. It does not introduce anything unnecessary at this stage. It focuses on reinforcing what has already been established. The cinematography continues to support this by keeping a balance between movement and stability. The visuals remain clear and easy to follow. The visual effects remain strong, but they are used in a way that supports the story rather than dominating it. The sound design continues to add depth to the scenes. Every movement and impact feels supported, which enhances immersion. The music follows the tone of the film. It supports the emotional moments and adds intensity when needed, without becoming overwhelming. Another important aspect is how the film maintains its pacing as it approaches the end. It does not rush, but it also does not slow down too much. It keeps moving at a steady rhythm. The performances remain consistent, and that helps maintain the identity of the characters. Each actor stays within the tone of the film. The chemistry between the cast continues to feel natural, which adds to the realism of the interactions. From a production perspective, the film maintains a high level of detail. Everything feels carefully designed and connected. Another interesting element is how the film allows its themes to come together naturally. It does not explain them directly. It lets the audience understand them through the story. Ultron continues to represent the consequences of the central idea. His role remains meaningful because of what he represents. From an audience perspective, this stage of the film feels more reflective. It allows you to think about everything that has happened and how it all connects. The balance between spectacle and depth remains one of the film's strongest qualities. The pacing, while occasionally fast, still maintains a clear direction. The story continues to move forward without losing focus. Another factor that stands out is how the film maintains its tone across all its elements. It does not feel inconsistent. The production quality remains high throughout, contributing to a polished experience. As the film approaches its final moments, everything starts to feel more connected. The story, the characters, and the themes all come together. And that is what prepares the film for its final conclusion. As everything reaches its final point, the film no longer feels like separate parts coming together. It feels like one complete idea that has been built step by step from the beginning. What makes this ending effective is not just the resolution of the conflict, but the understanding that comes with it. The story does not simply end with a victory. It ends with awareness. Tony Stark's journey feels complete in this sense. He begins with the belief that he can create something to control the future, and by the end, that belief has changed. It is no longer about control. It is about understanding the limits of what can be controlled. This shift is what gives the story its meaning. It shows that even the strongest intentions can lead to unexpected outcomes, and that learning from those outcomes is what matters. Bruce Banner continues to represent the emotional side of that journey. His character reflects the weight of what has happened and adds depth to the final moments. The rest of the team completes this picture by showing how different individuals move forward after facing the same situation. Each character carries something from the experience, and that makes the ending feel more real. From a direction point of view, the film handles its conclusion with simplicity. It does not try to add unnecessary complexity. It focuses on the characters and their state after everything that has happened. The cinematography supports this by becoming more stable and focused. The camera does not move excessively. It allows the moments to settle. The visual effects step back slightly in these final moments, allowing the story to take the lead. This balance helps create a stronger ending. The sound design becomes more subtle, supporting the scenes without drawing attention. The music follows the same approach. It remains present, but it does not overpower the emotion of the scenes. The pacing slows down just enough to give the ending space. This allows the audience to process everything that has happened. The performances remain consistent until the very end. Each actor stays true to their character, which helps maintain the tone. The chemistry between the cast continues to feel natural, even in these final moments. From a production perspective, the film maintains its quality until the last scene. Everything feels connected and well-structured. Another important aspect of the ending is how it leaves room for continuation. It does not close everything completely. Instead, it suggests that the story will continue in another form. This approach works well because it gives closure while still keeping the world open. From an audience perspective, the film leaves a strong impression because it combines action with meaning. It provides entertainment, but it also gives something to think about. The balance between spectacle and depth remains one of its strongest qualities. The pacing, even at the end, remains controlled. It does not rush the conclusion, and it does not extend it unnecessarily. Another factor that stands out is how the film stays consistent with its tone. It does not suddenly change direction. It follows through on what it has been building. Ultron's role as a character continues to feel meaningful even after the conflict ends. He represents the consequences of the central idea, and that idea remains relevant. As a final takeaway, the film succeeds because it brings together its story, characters, and technical elements in a balanced way. It may not be perfect, but it delivers an experience that feels complete and engaging. And when you look back at it, it feels like more than just a superhero film. It becomes a story about decisions, responsibility, and the limits of control. So overall, Avengers Age of Ultron manages to combine large-scale action with character-driven storytelling in a way that leaves a lasting impression. And that is what makes it worth watching, analyzing, and even revisiting again.